101.3 WCHE, the Connor and Mark show from 10 to 11. Moving into some Flyers here as we have on for us. Jordan Hall, who covers the Flyers for NBC Sports Philadelphia. You can follow Jordan Hall on NBC Sports Philadelphia, also on Twitter at JHallNBCS. Jordan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
Doing good. And listen, the Flyers are playing today. A wild win, a couple days ago as they came back from 3-0. It looked like a horrible start for the Flyers as falling down that short about 4 minutes into the game, but they found a way to get back into it and win that game. What did you make of the Flyers' 4-3 comeback and the resilience from this team?
Yeah, I thought it was a big boy win. I remember Alain Vigneault last year during the playoffs talked about some of his players pulling up their big boy pants. It was when they were down 3-1 to the Islanders, and they were looking to make a comeback. And to me, that was a big boy win. You take a real serious gut check. You're down 3-0 in the first 4 minutes in Pittsburgh in front of their fans. And some teams would have panicked. Some teams maybe would have packed it in. But I thought they called a timeout. They regrouped, and they plugged away, and they never really quit. And to me, that's a sign of a team that wants to contend, that can contend, can play in bigger moments when their backs are kind of against the wall. So I thought that was a really good sign in Game 20 of the season for a team that's really off to its best 20-game start since 2005-06. So I thought an all-around positive comeback. The key now is to really build off of it. They play today. If they lose today, they end up losing 2-3 in Pittsburgh, and maybe you don't think as much about that comeback win. If they win today and they play well and they respond, then you're really looking back at that win as somewhat of a turning point.
Yeah, and Jordan, thanks again for coming on, man. We really appreciate it, as always. Recurring guests on the podcast as well. Let's dive in a little more into this game last, I believe, the other night. And, this game was so involved and dictated, I would say, that comeback by Claude Giroux, the captain, and coming back from the COVID pause, or from when he was, had COVID, he's looked wonderful in points production and just the intensity he's bringing. What do you make of the game he had the other night, and do you see his game now transcending throughout the season into the playoffs potentially?
Yeah, to me that was a really impressive performance. Claude Giroux is going to have a lot of storytelling type of games. Looking back in his Flyers career, you're going to have so many moments when I think it's all said and done and you look back at Claude Giroux's Flyers career. I think that might be an underrated performance right there. I know it's the regular season, and I know he's going to have a ton of moments in his Flyers career, but he really put the team on his back, and you're forgetting sometimes that he's only 5 games back after having the coronavirus, and he said his bout with the coronavirus was pretty bad. He dealt with it pretty good, and to think that he was doing what he was doing last night at 33 years old really willed the team, and that's his second 3-point game in 5 games back from COVID-19. So just really impressive stuff, and he's a point shy of being a point-per-game player right now. I don't think Claude Giroux's their best player anymore. He's not even their best forward anymore, and that's okay. But the fact that he's doing what he's doing is just a huge plus. I think fans should really just look at Claude Giroux to be effective, but when he's having 3-point games and he's 17 points in 18 games, that's huge. And I think he's been really good, and he's off to a great start. I think he was really hungry coming into this season. I think he heard a lot of outside noise after last year's playoffs. And when Claude Giroux was motivated and fueled inside, he can be really good and really fun to watch.
Brian Elliott's going to get the start here today at 1 o'clock. What do you make of this Hart and Elliott dynamic? And obviously Carter's struggled a little bit this year. It's not been the year I think that everybody's expected out of him. But Brian Elliott's been fantastic as a backup and his role. So what do you make of this dynamic, and how do you think Carter Hart's going to have to battle and get back on track and to play to a standard that he usually plays at?
Hey, Brian Elliott might be quietly one of their most important players right now through 20 games. If you don't have Brian Elliott, if you don't have one of the best backups in the league, who knows where the Flyers might be? Because obviously Carter Hart hasn't quite been himself. He's struggled. He's given up 6 or more, I think, twice already to the Bruins. So Brian Elliott's been huge, and I think that's what exactly the Flyers were hoping from him, is a veteran guy that's been around. He's made a career out of being a tandem guy. He's made a career out of coming in tough moments, having his number called when maybe the team's not going well. So he's made a career out of that, and he's showing why. Carter Hart's still the number one, though. He's still the team's future franchise goalie. He's still going to be the guy that they're going to look to. If you even look at it now, they played Brian Elliott on Thursday. They're playing him today, Saturday, and they're doing that because they want to set up Carter Hart to play at home in front of the fans for the first time in just about a year. So they realize and they know Carter Hart's the number one. I don't think Hart's been as bad as his numbers say. If you're an outsider and you haven't seen the games and you look at his numbers, you're like, wow, Carter Hart's been really bad so far. If you watch some of the games, a lot of it hasn't been on Carter Hart. He played the Bruins a ton, and I think the Bruins are pretty good. So I think Carter Hart's going to be fine. I think he's made some good strides as of late. And he'll be the number one, I think, down the stretch. And when playoffs come around, if this team makes the playoffs, and I think many expect them to do. So Carter Hart's still the number one, and Brian Elliott's just a really good backup that's going to play a lot because this is a time crunch season with not a lot of days off, a lot of games. So you're going to use both your goalies, and it's just a massive plus that Brian Elliott could probably start on a lot of teams.
Yeah, and Jordan, now going into a very exciting topic, and you alluded to it, fans finally coming back into the Wells Fargo Center. I believe it's been about a year since the last time fans have been in there. What do you think this is going to do to the team? I know Philadelphia is such a unique city with, how the fans and players interact together. What do you think this is going to do for this team? And I know you said the Flyers are trying to get Carter Hart to setting him up to start in front of the fans. Do you think this is going to add an extra spark to their game and as well as the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's a really big plus. I definitely don't. I don't want to minimize what this could do for the Flyers. I do think it's really important. I know it's only 3,100 fans. The place obviously sits 19,000 plus. But I have a feeling Philly in a group of 3,100 can be pretty raucous, pretty loud, and they're going to bring energy to the Flyers. So I think it's important for the team. I think it's great, obviously, for the fans to be able to come back, taste a little bit of normalcy, see their hockey team play again. I think it's great economically. A lot more people are back to work at the Wells Fargo Center because of this, which I think is wonderful. But as from a hockey wins and loss standpoint, the Flyers were a different team at home last year, and a lot of that was because of their crowd. They fed off the crowd. They felt comfortable there. There was a true home ice advantage. And in the Alain Vigneault era, they are 31-8-6 at home. They've been dominant at home, and a lot of that is because of their fans. I think the Flyers will feed off of 3,100. I really do. So I think that's going to be a huge thing for them down the stretch, especially when you're playing a lot of rivalry-type games. You're playing these teams in the East Division 8 times a year. So it's almost a lot of it's like a playoff series. The Flyers, Travis Konecny said the other day that this Penguins series up in Pittsburgh, 3 games, they've been looking at it like a playoff series. So I think when you have your fans behind you in those types of games, those types of moments, that's a huge benefit. So I think it's going to be great for the Flyers. I think it's great for the fans. So all the way around, a real positive for this season.
Jordan, Phil Myers is doubtful for today's game. That's another blow, obviously, for the defense for the Flyers. They've taken a lot this year. But with the deadline approaching, it's not too far away. And the Flyers have been linked to Matisse Ekholm, who plays for the Nashville Predators. He's obviously a stout defenseman. Usually the Flyers have not been too aggressive at the deadline. They made some moves, obviously, last year, some depth moves, but they haven't really made a lot of star power moves. Really, I feel like since Paul Holmgren was probably in charge. So do you think there's a good chance here that the Flyers can really make a bigger move for a defenseman and bolster that back end for him?
Yeah, I do. I think they're going to be buyers. And last year they were buyers in a way, but they did so not so loudly. They weren't going out making big splashes. They made improvements at the margins, with Derek Rand and Nate Thompson. I could see them possibly doing that again. I'm not exactly sure. I do think that they're in more of a position maybe to make a splash this year, just because I think they're more and more in win now mode. You're thinking like you only have so many years. Chuck Fletcher has said that every year is precious in the NHL. Every year you have a chance to make a run is precious. And maybe they do see a bigger hole in the back end than they did obviously last year when they had Matt Niskanen and things looked pretty good at the deadline. They were just trying to improve a little bit. At the same time, I don't think they're going to mortgage the future for Mattias Ekholm or any player. I think they really like their prospects. There's not a lot of cap space to begin with because of the flat cap era. So it's not easy to make moves, bring guys in without having it's hard to add without having to subtract a lot right now. Last year, you could do that a little bit more by shedding a draft pick and not having to take a lot of cap. If you add a big name, there's a good chance that player has a larger cap hit. There's a good chance that player is going to require probably prospects, not just picks. So I don't know if the Flyers are going to really be looking to mortgage their future. And at the same time, the trade deadline's still over a month away. Deadlines typically spark action, so I think we still have some waiting out to do. I think March will be a telling month. There's 17 games in this month. I think the Flyers should have a good idea of where they are going into April, and then the Flyers will have a better idea of what they want to add, or maybe if they don't have to add. So give it some time. I think the Flyers want to see what they have more on the back end right now. We're only 20 games in. That can be somewhat of a small sample size, so give it another month. I think the Flyers will have a better idea of where they stand and maybe if they want to add on the back end.
All right, Jordan. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. But before we go, we do have one more question for you. Flyers in action today, 1 o'clock in Pittsburgh. We got to get your prediction for this game after splitting the first two games.
I like the Flyers in this game. I think Pittsburgh should be coming out pretty hungry and hard. I think they're not going to be happy with how that game ended. Jumping out to a 3-0 lead the first 4 minutes, and then you don't even leave at the point. They lost in regulation. So I think Pittsburgh's going to come out pretty hard. But I think the Flyers are pretty hungry to take this game. I guess we'll have to see if Joel Farabee and Phil Myers play. If those two are out, then the order becomes a bit bigger. But I like the Flyers. I think they're playing well right now. They've outshot the opponent in 5 straight games. They've won 4 of their last 5. I think they're trending in the right direction. So I'll say Flyers, but I think it's going to be a physical, tightly contested game just given how last game ended.
All right, you can follow Jordan on Twitter at JHallNBCS, and you can read his articles. He's the best, and I think he's the best Flyers writer we got. Jordan, thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Great having me on. I appreciate it, and always great talking to you guys. Thanks a lot.